There are 693 days until the 2024 presidential election. Before we start, I want to say simply that I am very grateful that Brittany Griner is home. And it is without qualification a very good thing that we got you back. So welcome home. Um, Yeah, there's literally no other conversation to have about that, because I can't even handle the hypocrisy and the misogyny and racism and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So today, hi Danielle, haven't seen you a bit.
Hi.
How's it going? I mean, we have seen each other
We have in person.
IRL. Okay, I'll never do that again. I promise. That was terrible. But yeah, it's been a while since you've been here. I know you've been really busy. Jen, hello. I'm so happy to have you eating, as many other people are, I'm sure. And forgive me, there's sun glinting off the building across from me. So if I look like I'm irradiated, that's why. If I look like I'm going blind, I am.
Amazing.
Anyway, there are a couple of things I just want to get out of the way before we start diving in to our conversation about Twitter and this massive, massive reporting by Talking Points memo about the insane number of texts that were exchanged between Mark Meadows, then chief of staff, and an insane number of Republicans who were like all in on illegally and unconstitutionally overturning the results of the election in Arizona so they could also illegally and unconstitutionally hand the presidency to Donald Trump. I mean, it's quite remarkable. Um, and a couple other things. But first, I just saw a couple of reports that I wanted to mention. We could talk about them later, but I think it's one is just I'm curious about. Dianne Feinstein is 89 years old. She has she's her term ends in November 2024, so 2 years, give or take. And she has stated that she's definitely not stepping down before then. And she hasn't yet decided if she's running for a reelection, at which point she'll be 91. So I say this without judgment. I'm literally curious. Is that okay? I know that
No.
sounds horribly ageist, but I don't mean it. Part of it, guys, is that clearly there's some diminishment of functioning for some people, and we've heard reports. I mean, I don't think Charles Grassley, who's 88, should have. The actuarial tables tell us that this is not necessarily a good time to start another 6-year term. But the other part of it is just on a human level. Like, I don't know. I want people to be like, you know what? I did my work and now I'm going to go do other things as I end my life. Essentially, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, how many people live past 89? I've known very few people, and that doesn't mean like you can't have that those years you have remaining to you can't be full of meaning. Of course they can. So please do something else. I don't know. Am I Danielle? Am I being judgmental?
No, I mean, I think that we oftentimes talk about the fact that, not only is Congress and the Senate in particular not representative of the population just based on racial demographics, but I think that when we look at who is making decisions about this country, you're looking at, octogenarians and now I don't even know what you call a 90-year-old, but old,
A
right? Like
nonagerian, no,
a
no, something,
whatever. I
something
don't
like
want to
that.
know that you're still holding on to your job, right?
Yeah.
Because at some point in time, I like let it go. And what we realize in this country is that people don't ever want to let go of power. They never want to let go of their prestige. It doesn't matter how old they are. And this isn't, I think that her being 91, Grassley being 89, you know, they have
He'll be
no real,
90. Oh, I'm sorry. No,
yeah,
he'll be 94 when his current term ends.
but they have no real clear, real life experience with what people are facing in this country now.
They've been there forever. Right.
They just don't. They are so deeply out of touch. The world has changed. And frankly, like at some point, I wish that they would cap people out, and say like, not at 65 or 70 or anything like that, but saying that you're 85 years old and you're seeking a 6-year term reelection, like that just seems crazy. There have got to be people who are literally half your age that should be taking on this job and this position.
Right. And you know what? Another thing about that is there are people at age 60 being pushed out, being forced into retirement. So, we don't have to keep increasing their wages. So I think it's completely fair to say, especially as you said, Danielle, when you're in a position of power making decisions for tens of millions of other people, that I don't think it's ungenerous to say, you know what, 80. That's that's as old as you can be when you run again. I'm not even saying you have to quit at 80. Like, so Jen, maybe it's obtuseness on my part, but I also I wonder about not just kind of capping the age, but term limits maybe. Because again, as Danielle said, like how much life experience can you get? And I've even wondered this about President Biden, quite honestly. He's been in government forever. And it does, I mean, granted, he's held different positions, although he was in the Senate for decades. And, I think it's valuable to go out and do something else. And I also, Jen, look at what Democratic leadership did in the House. It's like, yep, that's what you do. You say, I've had my time. We're all in our 80s now. We're passing the baton. We're passing the torch to the next generation of leadership, which is younger and more representative.
So, kind of being legalistic, but thinking about what both of you are talking about, where I go is from a legal and democratic perspective, who should decide? Like I hear what you're saying, and there are instances, regardless of age, where someone doesn't have the capacity to serve. And there are different mechanisms for removal. And one is the ballot box, and the other would be pressure from leadership. So let's talk about it in reverse order. Pressure from leadership would be taking someone off committees. And then they can do less damage, which should have been done years ago when it was clear that Feinstein wasn't really all there. The other thing is the part, running someone against her. Did anyone ever primary her? Because the party could support a primary candidate. And, my concern about, I look at what the U.S. Constitution says in terms of qualifications for Senate and House.
There aren't any.
The age qualification is there.
Yeah.
And then the question is, and I don't know from a legal matter whether that's something Congress could change or whether that would require a constitutional amendment. Now, let's talk about term limits. I'm concerned about term limits because for many instances, there are people who may have made it into the Senate. You look at someone like Ted Kennedy, or you look at someone like Elizabeth Warren, and they may, spend a lifetime serving things like progressive causes. Furthermore, in some states, even if I might not agree with the values of a particular state, their senator is the only reason why maybe that state gets any voice.
Yeah.
And so what I would think is my approach would be, first of all, if we care about democracy, this is kind of tangential, but it's related. DC needs to be a state. They need representation. And people in the state of California need the Democratic Party to should have had someone run someone against Feinstein years ago. That's how you have these conversations.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Where is Chuck Schumer?
Well,
on this.
I mean, who knows? There are so many instances, and we talked about this vis-a-vis something else that I can't remember off the top of my head. But I was giving an interview and I was asked about something the Biden administration did, and my position is always there's so much I don't know as a private citizen. Who knows what goes on behind the scenes? Who knows what those closed door conversations are? Who knows what the threats are? Who knows? And I think sometimes you do have to be careful that you're not having certain kinds of accusations leveled at you. But I do have to say that I'm sort of resentful that that there would have to be a primary challenge because I just look at things like recounts and when people refuse to concede and the millions of dollars we waste on things like this when clearly Feinstein should just be saying I'm done. Partially because the idea of going through a nonsensical, in my view, election or primary is, I don't know, it's just not tenable. But the other thing is that it's not that Democrats should be worried we're going to lose a seat, but California deserves a more liberal senator than she is. Right? Because like Danielle, like you were saying, it not only is she kind of because of life experience, but she does not any longer share the values of her constituents because she's not it doesn't seem to me like she's evolved.
No, and it doesn't, and we have to understand that a lot of the things that the daily trials and tribulations that we all face, like they're above, right? So, in terms of access, in terms of resources, they're above. But I think that, why don't we have conversations about the fact that you need to be 35 in order to run for the presidency, right? 65 is the age of retirement. Republicans want to raise that to 70, right? So they can squeeze a little bit more work out of people before they're able to access Social Security and other entitlements. And so why don't we talk about a cap, right? Like as a realistic thing and saying that, sure, we're all living longer, right? But that doesn't mean that we're all have the same faculties, that we're all actually together. And so if at 75 or 80, you have to, and these are things that I thought about driving, for instance. Just because you get a license at 17 years old doesn't mean that at 85 you should still be driving, right? Like there needs to be some, and again, but I agree with Jen, who is doing the assessment, who is doing the evaluation, who is calling for, for these things where it doesn't seem ageist or sexist or, any of these other issues. And so, but I'm like, who came up with the decision that 35 had to be the age to run for the presidency and not 30? That 65 was the age for retirement instead of 60, right? Like these are conversations that as people are living longer, we need to be asking, and what does the evaluation look like, right? At 75 to make sure, you still all there, right? Like everything working in the way that it should.
Right. Well, I mean, a bunch of white slaveholders came up with these numbers. And also what's weird is that back then 35 was old, was like middle-aged, and now it's really it's young. So it just shows you how uneven human evolution is. It's just like human development, that we evolve more quickly in some ways than in others. And the idea that, okay, we're living longer, so we should suffer longer and we should be older before we get to start enjoying the fruits of our labor. It is so human that instead of saying, well, we're living longer, so why don't we make it possible for people to have more years to enjoy than instead of let's make you work until you're ready to drop dead and can't enjoy anything anymore. So clearly that's a different issue from what we're talking about with the Senate, but it sort of points to the double standard. Americans have to have what is the minimum federal minimum wage is $7.25, and it has been such since the 90s, which I find so deeply cruel. members of Congress get a cost of living increase every year, I believe, or to keep up with inflation or whatever. What do members of Congress make? $170,000 a year right
Can
now?
I interrupt you and just say that for people who work in restaurants, it's not $7.25 an
That's
hour.
right.
And this is very much a legacy of involuntary servitude and slavery, who are the people who do that kind of work.
Yep.
And also, I think home health care, there's I might be wrong about that, but if you look at, there really isn't one fair wage. I
Nope.
would like, so anyway, it really, that burns me a lot.
I mean, thankfully some states have higher minimum wages, but I just literally can't imagine living on that, especially if you have children. It's absolutely obscene. And, it's the same thing with healthcare. Like, these people who have healthcare guaranteed, very good healthcare guaranteed for life, make decisions about whether the rest of us should have healthcare. And I'm not, obviously, there's nothing to do with Feinstein. I'm just saying that there's always a double standard. The rules that they apply to us do not apply to them. So I think these are all conversations worth having about capacity, who makes those decisions, and why we're in so many ways still stuck with decisions that were made 240 years ago. It's just right. I mean, it's just, and it, Danielle, it's a really good point. Like, usually when we think about that, we think about the Electoral College. Well, that wasn't even in the Constitution, but what I'm saying, we think about kind of more broad issues, but that matters too. And, like, we don't ever revisit these things because, well, it's in the Constitution. Well, that's a shitty reason not to change something, guys. Anyway, so that caught my attention, and this is something that's kind of fallen out of the news, I guess. And this is something that happens when Democrats win. We kind of drop our guard. And don't get me wrong, there's so much to pay attention to, but this is sort of it's ancillary to the Twitter discussion, but it also, I want to jump from the conversation. I'm gonna the point I want to make about something that's happening in Florida right now, to this whole idea of what it means to be conservative. There's this horrible human being named Bruce Friedman, who's from New York, but he's moved down to Florida probably because DeSantis is open to his cruelty and insanity. And he's on a mission to get 3,600 books banned from the public libraries down in Florida. And these are books about, LGBTQ issues and adolescent romance and race and self-acceptance, and because these are apparently all terrible things in the view of this really deeply damaged person who just cannot handle the thought that his teenage son would read a book about two girls who have romantic feelings for each other. I mean, it's just like the dangerousness of banning books cannot be overstated. And I just want to remind everybody that it's not like that went away because the Republicans didn't win as big as they were supposed to in the midterms. So it's not that there's necessarily much to say about it other than that, but we can't drop our guard on these things. And I guess part of it too is that at least in Florida, I assume it's different from state, but in Florida, just as soon as one person brings a challenge about one book, that book gets taken off the shelves. I mean, go ahead, Danielle.
I'll say the other day I interviewed a school board member of Brevard County in Florida, who back in 2021 had written a piece in the Washington Post about, I don't know, the domestic terrorism that she was facing because she decided to run for school board, had as a Democrat and unseated a Republican. And she was talking about not only the violence that she was facing, but the fact that thousands of books have been banned, that it's a coordinated, and here's the thing that people need to understand about the book banning, as well as what is happening at the school board level and how Republicans have been able to weaponize it, is that there is a coordinated effort, like a ground level campaign that is put together by Republican political action committees to bring people in from out of state, friends, who don't even live in the counties, to disrupt school board meetings, to make it seem like they are parents that are outraged. They are provided with scripts, right? To be able to stand up in the middle of school board meetings and run off at the mouth. These are people who do not even live in the counties that they're going to disrupt these meetings. Mm-hmm. And so what the person that I interviewed was saying was that you know, Ron DeSantis made an entire campaign around, you know, taking back the schools. And she said 70% of the school boards before Ron DeSantis ever started on this crusade are run by fucking Republicans anyway. They're just not extremist crazies in the way that he wants them to be. But that had been the norm. For a Democrat to win was kind of like unheard of, right? And so, you know, these conversations, it isn't just about, to your point, Mary, about Democrats dropping the ball. I have said for so many years as a former educator, I taught first and second grade and then went into education policy, which is what I did on the Hill for several years. K through 12 public education is the biggest proponent of spreading white supremacy and patriarchy and misogyny in this country. And what our children learn and who controls their curriculum matters, right? It isn't just about the erasure of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color, or queer people in this color. It is about creating Republican state-led propaganda, right, that upholds white supremacy in really dangerous ways. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that Democrats still haven't come up with the pushback to this is what allowed Glenn Youngkin to become governor in Virginia after Democrats had worked for so long to turn Virginia blue. And now it's back to red again because parents should have control, right? So I'm glad that you brought it up because it is a conversation that isn't had. And when we tell people that they need to vote, we don't just mean at the federal level.
Right. Yeah. And that's that's something that gets lost. And I'm glad you brought up Virginia because that is something that still makes me so angry. First of all, this decision not to engage because nobody knows what CRT is. Well, yes, exactly. That's part of the problem. Nobody knows what it is. So it can be used as a cudgel to ignorant white people who, you know, don't refuse to acknowledge racism in this country. So yes, you need to not just explain what it is, but I'll say it's not taught. It's not taught anyway. So this is absolutely just a tactic to create a problem that doesn't exist in voters' mind. And by the way, and this wasn't said once during that entire campaign, by the way, Glenn Youngkin is a horrible racist. Nobody said that because it was, as Democrats often do, it's like, you know what? We don't want to go there. Really? You don't want to go there? Mm-mm. Why? So Jen, it does all kind of feel like it's of a piece. We don't want to go there. And next thing you know, they're teaching revisionist American history in schools. They're not allowing the word gay to be used in elementary schools, even if the teacher's gay or the children's parents are gay or whatever. I mean, it's just, it's this slippery slope that gets slipperier and slopier, whatever that word is, because we don't engage as soon as the battle has been joined on the other side. So, and the other thing that's sort of maddening, and I also do want you to point to the good news that you uncovered, is that all of this stuff, you know, these stances on the right get included under the umbrella of the word conservative. Mm-hmm. So Jen, if you want to talk about that, but also give us your good news.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of hard to sort through all of this because, you know, you use the word conservative, and I think, you know, I had a kind of a classical education. I was fortunate enough that my parents could afford to send me to a private school in the Midwest. I can't do that for my kids. And at that school, for whatever reason, maybe because it was late 70s, early to mid 80s, a lot of the teachers were former hippies who went into teaching. And our parents kind of wanted us to be well educated and read widely. And there was no state curriculum, and there was no, sort of group of people who didn't know about teaching telling teachers what to do. So we read widely.
Mhm.
And, I wonder if some of these people have ever even read, William Shakespeare, I mean, and how you even can go about reading any books, whether it is the Western literary tradition or more widely across the globe and modern in modern books. How can you even have a conversation about The Bluest Eye
Mhm.
or Gatsby or Virginia Woolf or Shakespeare without digging into historical context, or even George Bernard Shaw? I mean, how can you talk about, a play like Major Barbara without talking about the Fabian Society and socialism? How do you even become an educated person in this world without context? So, I have conservative educational values, and I think,
How dare you flout them and make people feel
but
bad about
I
their
also
ignorance?
think, science is important too, and math. And anyway, so let me, all of this is to say, what are the part of having a representative democracy is deciding what things the voters will decide and that what they don't. So, voters get to elect school boards, and school boards have a certain role. But school boards should, don't get to decide, don't get to go into the nurse's office at school and say whether the nurse can give Tylenol or Advil. I mean, in other words, and the same thing should be this, with this. So we should allow citizens and communities to run for the school board. But at the end of the day, teachers need a lot of autonomy for what goes on in their classroom. And I'm a very much hands off the teachers, except if they are violating the law by or doing something to be exclusionary or non-inclusive. I mean, the goal of education is to make students think, not just to jam information into their head, to help them be lifelong learners, to allow for the flourishing of the society. And I don't know, I, I just wish that we could have those kinds of conversations instead of these idiots with their sound bites. And Mary, I'd be delighted if critical race theory were taught in elementary or high school.
Well, not
It's
elementary.
very,
It's a pretty advanced
it's
legal
nothing's
theory.
well, it's not,
Critical
but
race theory?
well, what I'm saying
It's
is,
just
yeah,
history.
if students have the capacity, some students can learn calculus as a young,
Okay,
maybe.
let's
Anyway, but I don't. But part of this is what you're saying, which is I don't want to be on their playground of saying, well, we're not even doing that, as if it's a
Right.
bad thing.
No. That I agree. That I agree with.
Like maybe
But
I was
I'm not-
too
but
young
it-
to learn about the Holocaust when I was 9 years old, but that's how it's done.
Right, but I'm
I
not
learned
saying
about, yeah. How can you not learn about slavery as soon as you learn about American history?
of course, but that's critical race theory is a separate. And I'm not saying we don't teach it because it's bad. I'm saying, but we don't do that. It just simply doesn't happen. So that is just a lie. That's all.
Well,
I
no,
mean,
but let me just be clear. It's not, students don't learn pedagogy. They don't learn educational theory, but the teachers who are teaching and making choices about how do you teach about the Civil War, they themselves, those teachers might be steeped in how do you include perspectives accurately. So I just want to be clear, because what happens is the people on the right will come out and say, how come this teacher was studying critical race theory? What is she doing with the students? Well, teachers study all kinds of pedagogy. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but
that's what they were doing, though.
Listen,
that's what they're doing.
Okay, I think this is a subject that deserves much more time and attention. My point is simply, not that this was my point, but what I wanted to say now is that teachers are professionals and should be treated as such. Parents and students aren't clients. Students are students, teachers are teachers. They should also be paid better. And, the idea that like in Florida, DeSantis is letting anybody who wants to be a teacher, even without an advanced degree, could be a teacher. That just like that just helps them destroy the profession and then opens up the opportunities to degrade it even further and then say, well, teachers aren't really good at their job, so parents should be hauling it or whatever. So it is a mess. And I'm not critical race theory is a very specific thing. I think that children should be taught American history as it happened through history is not simple. There are perspectives, but yes, and I'm not a teacher, so I don't make these decisions. Teachers figure out when children are ready to learn about slavery, when they are ready to learn about the Holocaust. That is not something that I should be involved in deciding, or that any parent should be, because that is about pedagogy and how our children should be educated. So again, a much larger conversation. My point was simply about ceding ground when we shouldn't, and ending up in a position where we're fighting a multi-front war because we let a lie slide and didn't call it what it was. Because again, critical race theory is awesome. The fact of the matter is it is not taught in schools, and the person who was using it, in this case Youngkin, as a campaign tactic, is a racist. That was my point. And not to say that was irresponsible in my view. Brian, I know you have to head to the White House, so just jump in and let us know what's going on, Cub reporter.
Well, today it's the same sex marriage act that's going to be signed on the South Lawn. It's going to be a huge crowd, marking once again something that that no other administration has been able to pull off. And that will be codified and signed by the president today. And it's probably one of the largest things that's going to happen. And by gum, they're just not real great at telling us all about it yet again. But their messaging stinks, but their actions.
I don't know. Is that true? I think they've been.
Yeah, their messaging could be a lot better. There are a lot of people who have no idea what. I'm in a hurry. Got to go down there. These are people on the news who should know, and they're going, "Well, what's going on? It's just the White House." And I'm going, "Wow." Okay. Like this you need to know. It's like with the infrastructure bill. So that's and then at the same time, the White House is trying to prepare for I think Joe Biden is going to take this a week, as he said he would in his press conference a couple of weeks ago, and talk to his wife. I think she had one of those we have to talk moments with him and decide what he's going to do after the first of the year. And at the same time, I think whether he's going to run or not. And I think a lot of that will be part and parcel on what the DOJ does. And it's looking more and more every day like the DOJ is going to probably indict Donald Trump for something. So that's it's moving closer and closer to that.
Too many qualifications in that sentence, my friend.
I think that the special, I have said for a while, I think he's going to get indicted. I think the indictment is pending and is coming sooner than, and I think the addition of the special counsel only sends that home. As I said, it wasn't, he didn't have to form a committee. He didn't have to get investigators. He came in after the investigation. He's got one job to do, and I think he's going to do it. And I think Donald Trump is really going to be, and as Danielle said, that was my prediction. Actually, I still say that come January 6th, I would not be surprised if on the anniversary of January 6th, Donald Trump got the worst present that he could ever get for the new year, and that is an indictment. And
it would be fitting.
It would be absolutely fitting. In fact, I think there will be people cheering from the rafters. So
yes, as I said not too long ago,
I will send every Nerd Avenger champagne, sweet and toast on air if it were to happen on January.
Absolutely. 6th. I said the country's going to run out of beer.
Well, see, and if Donald Trump can make a dime off of it, he will. I don't know how he'll do it.
Maybe he should sell some Trump steaks and champagne in advance.
Well, I don't know.
Kill everybody.
I will tell you this. I got an email from him today. I'm going to do something I've never done before. Was how the email started off, and I said, "What? You're going to tell the truth?"
Yes.
He's going to do a personal video for a winner. I'm going to enter that just to see Give me a personal.
Brian, can I cut you off even though I don't want to, which is I just want to make note that January 6th is a Friday.
Yes.
So that would be fucking perfect. Jack Smith, are you listening?
Well, can you imagine what the weekend will be at Mar-a-Lago? There'll be no ketchup and no clean.
I don't care
toilets.
about the weekend at Mar-a-Lago. I care about what our weekends are going to be like.
Yeah,
'Cause Danielle's supplying the champagne.
and the only other thing to catch up on is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Tara Dublin was banned from Twitter for a week for for poking fun at Marjorie Taylor Greene because of her
But that's
comments
like
about butt plugs.
that. It's impossible not to make fun. of her.
I'm so confused. It was Marjorie Taylor Greene who mentioned them. So
Yes, but it was Tara Dublin who said, said something caustic about it, called her a skank, and for that
Wow.
She wasn't lying.
Hey,
Wasn't lying.
so she ought to be an honorary nerd avenger just for that. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that's coming. The chickens are coming home to roost. And I don't know. You might see her in a position of leadership next year in the House, which would always be. All I can say is, wow.
Well,
so as we wind into Christmas, man, it's getting nuts. But it's always been that way.
yeah. The whole Marge. I keep forgetting to have sunglasses.
Well, I'm going to go down to the White House today dressed like this.
Oh, well, fancy. Are you going to Venice after the White House? It's going to be carnival soon. Not really.
Why are you doing that? Is that for the gay marriage thing or what?
Oh, no, that's just for the protesters out front.
Oh, nice.
Because there'll be plenty of the Trumplicans who will be out there screaming and ranting and raving as they always do.
Oh, those poor straight people who don't have any rights in America.
Yeah. And along with the evangelical with his big long horn that he likes to, it's kind of like the shofar, but it's not. It's his own variation, and he'll sit out there and tweet it and tell us we're all going to hell. So it's always fun to walk into the White House under those circumstances.
That's why I don't believe in hell, personally.
But although parts of Los Angeles are close.
No, but seriously, I like to these people, about marriage equality and abortion rights. I say, give me your case against without mentioning religion, and they can't do it. So I don't care what they have to say, even if they're blowing a shofar. Or especially if I don't know.
I don't know what the big longhorn is. I asked him one time, and he called it his noogie noogie or something. I don't know what he called it, but
it might be that Australian thing.
I think it's this one particular reporter's personal horn that.
Then.
Yeah,
well, as riveting as it would be to go down that particular rabbit hole, I want to, you mentioned Green, whom I despise talking about, quite honestly, but here we are. She is, I think, in many ways, one of the, if not the de facto leaders of the freaking Republican Party, certainly the leader in the House. And I was talking to somebody recently that who mentioned that she'd spoken to some of Green's constituents and they support her wholeheartedly and are willing to put up with her egregiousness and her cruelty because she was treated so badly by being removed from her committees. Okay, so that in a way leads me to Twitter. I think we're kind of at or we're close to a turning point with Twitter. It's becoming a more dangerous place. It's been an unpleasant place increasingly since what's his name took over.
What is that guy's name?
I don't know. Some total loser. And there was the Plumb Line was grappling with this issue in a recent article, was either today or yesterday, and I agree with the sentiment that shaming people on the right is an absolute waste of time. Being outraged by them is a waste of time. They like it. I mean, that's why they're doing it, to make us angry and upset. They have no shame. I think
Well,
at
the
the
butt plug comment should tell you that right there.
right, yeah, well,
If you
yeah,
had
and
any doubts, that's
yeah, I mean they're thin-skinned bullies, and they just they like it when we react to them. So don't block. Blocking is there for a reason, at least for now. Um, but at the outset, we need to be really clear that we're in an information war. And all of the misinformation and disinformation is coming from that side of things. And that's the side that Elon Musk is on.
well, he has a real he doesn't have an understanding of what free speech is. And
No.
those people who follow him have no idea of what free speech is. And there is the First Amendment, and then there's the spirit of free speech. And his idea of free speech is you can speak whatever you want unless I disagree with it. That's not free speech. That's demagoguery.
And he doesn't think criticism is free speech. He thinks free
No,
speech,
or
if you
parody.
criticize someone, then that has to be silenced or
Well,
something. Criticize him, I mean.
he silenced the first person who posted a video about him getting booed at the Dave Chappelle show. Then everybody else jumped in and started what's he going to do? Ban, 1 million people after that? So he kind of had to let up. But the point is the idea of free speech, and it's mistaken by a lot of people. The sentiment is, I disagree with what you say, but will defend to death your right to say it. That means you have to tolerate someone screaming at the top of their lungs that which you would stand and argue against at the top of your lungs. That's just the way it is. You cannot specifically go after someone and say hurt them. You can't run into a theater and yell fire when there is none. There are limits.
There's a difference between speech in the public square and privately in a speech in a privately held company. So the issue there is yes, what's his name can let people say whatever they want, and he can block anybody for saying things he doesn't like. It's a privately held company, and we can decide to stay or not stay, and it's disgusting. And he can decide to get rid of anybody who is vetting hate speech and let people be as despicable as they want. And and that's sort of where we are with Twitter.
Hypocrisy knows no bounds.
Right, but it's not just hypocrisy. I mean, it's similar to when, and again, he was a public official, but when Donald goes after somebody, it's very different from a private citizen going after another private citizen. When Musk goes after Fauci or anybody, Kathy Griffin on Twitter.
Yeah.
And let's say that half of his followers are bots. Well, that still leaves him with over 50 million actual human beings who are followers of his. When he goes after private citizens, it potentially leads to real violence when he is the one echoing disinformation, like about Paul Pelosi, when he is the one who is bye Brian. When he's the one who is attacking people for criticizing him, or it's just it carries a different weight because he has so much unearned power, and he's clearly, Dahlia wrote a great piece recently about how we're all sort of enthralled to these malignant narcissists, and can it please stop? But it's actually worse than that, because the malignant narcissists are also prepubescent boys who want to be cool and aren't. So it's go ahead, Danielle.
No, I was just going to say, I was thinking back to what Brian said about, again, Elon Musk doesn't know what free speech is. And I continue to say that we need to stop treating these egomaniacs as if they are adolescents or toddlers, because the reality is that Elon Musk knows exactly what he's doing. He is weaponizing a social media platform in order to, one, center himself, kind of in the same way that Kirsten Sinema wanted to change the narrative and say that she's an independent, because she really loves the headlines and she loves being talked about. So does Elon Musk. And so he knows what he's doing when he says, when he says hateful, nasty things at Dr. Fauci. He wants Fauci to be threatened. He wants the people who he does not like to be harmed. And he wants to use this platform and his voice in the same way that Donald Trump did, to threaten witnesses that were coming against him and stating exactly what it was that he was doing while he was president of the United States. And so when we say, oh, they're too stupid, or they don't know what they're doing, or blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, no, because we infantilize these men. And the fact is that white, rich men get to be perpetual adolescents. Right. And we want to believe that they are both geniuses and then incompetent, and they get to hold both of these titles at the same time. And I think it's bullshit. And so I think I just read, it was this morning, that the person that the person at Twitter, who was in charge of regulating hate speech, has been under grave threat because of Elon Musk tweeting at him. Right, he has been under grave threat and may have to move.
And
right,
he's a pedophile. Because,
right, and this is what happened to Dr. Christina Blasey Ford, who came out against Brett Kavanaugh. This is what happened to those poll workers down in Georgia. Right, is the ability for these people with grandiose platforms and a lot of wealth and maleness and cisness and whiteness to be able to weaponize the masses. Right, and then they get to say, oh well, it wasn't anything that I said that caused the shooting in Buffalo, or the shooting at Club Q, or the attack on Paul Pelosi, or any of these things. And it is willfully ignorant and neglectful of mainstream media to not connect the dots between the rhetoric that is being used and sent out to hundreds of millions of people, and then the actions that their foot soldiers are taking on the ground, whether it be the insurrection or a mass shooting. It is the same shit, and we just refuse to connect the dots.
Yeah, listen, the fact that the New York Times, I'm so over them here. I mean, I haven't for a long time, but it just gets worse and worse. Literally wrote an article saying we can't quite figure out where Elon Musk is coming from. What are his politics? And 5 seconds later, he's like, my pronouns. Yes, let's take a dig at the incredibly vulnerable trans community, you scumbag. Not trans, what am I saying? Gender fluidity and trans people
and non-binary.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Let's attack them in a not at all subtle way. My pronouns are prosecute Fauci. So let's stop pretending that we don't know what his
not yours.
are.
I mean, in case people don't know, you meant that's what Elon was saying.
Yes.
Yes. No, I know that. Yeah.
I don't know what you're referring to. Sorry.
No, when you said my pronouns are.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Fauci,
thank you so much.
Quoting Elon. Yes, I know. I know that.
I was hoping that people would just know that, but yes, thank you for that. And I just want to clarify something, because you're right. I mean, these people deserve no benefit of the doubt. These people do not deserve to inhabit both the genius and incompetent space. But there is something particularly maddening about, and by saying they're prepubescent boys who want to be cool, I'm not at all diminishing their intention, because this is all quite intentional. My point is that is playing to a particular audience that also exists in mainstream media. Like anybody, there's just no question about what's going on here. So the sort of the waffling, well, what's happening with Elon Musk? We don't really know. It's impossible to say that unless you're kind of buying into it, I think. So my question about this, the real question is, what do we do about it here? Because other than framing it properly in a way the mainstream media won't do, we also have a choice to make as individuals. Now, again, I think that being out, I don't mention him on Twitter ever. Because it's, I hate to say it, but it's his space now, and I don't want to fuel any of it. We have to talk about him outside of Twitter because, Twitter is still an important thing. and we can't pretend otherwise. But I also, somebody in that same Plumline article, this guy named Mesnick, I don't remember what outlet he's from, but I'll find it, put it in the show notes. I'll just link to the Greg Sargent's piece. He basically said that we need to, instead of just like attacking and being outraged by Musk's comments about Fauci, for example, we need to acknowledge that there are issues there. And I just don't, so focus on the actual facts. And I don't recall any facts that Fauci that there's anything Fauci did for which he should be prosecuted, but I guess I could be wrong.
Save Americans' lives,
Tell
tell
what a
people
monster.
What a monster to tell people to wear masks and to protect our children. So when they were going back to school from remote learning, that they wouldn't die from these HVAC systems that were put in their fucking buildings when they were, in the 1970s and 80s. What a monster.
He is. And I think that's exactly, that's why we need to walk a middle ground. It's almost like I was reading something about school shootings, and it was like, neither side should use this issue as I'm like, you know what? It's like this, it's become this knee-jerk response among Americans. Like, if you want to get people to back off, or if you want to pretend that there's such a thing as neutrality, you say something like, neither side owns this issue, or whatever. Neither side is perfect. You know what? This is a problem on the right. And the idea of having to walk a fine line to accommodate people like Elon Musk, who is endangering the lives of many people with his not just irresponsible, but, as Danielle said, intentional attacks. Now, some of us can, because it's Jen, it's not a simple, well, I mean, maybe it is, but from an outsider's point of view, I don't know what's going on in his head. Thank God. All I know is that he's really rich, bitch. Because apparently that's something that secure men say. And what the fuck was wrong with Dave Chappelle anyway? Jesus. I mean, the trans stuff was horrific. And I just saw it like recently. And now he's inviting.
Question.
Well, that actually wasn't a question. The question is this. From the outside, it looks like that. Well, no, it is. It just as a business strategy, it's a disaster. I mean, Tesla stock is just plummeting day after day, and pretty soon Twitter is going to be able to get the kinds of advertisers that Newsmax gets at 2 a.m. But that doesn't mean that there isn't another agenda being served here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, even when it comes to money, after a certain amount of it, it's not really about whether you can buy another yacht or another girlfriend or an offshore jurisdiction to launder your wealth. At some point, massive wealth is always the measuring stick, pissing match contest, anyhow. So for some people, and for someone like Elon, humiliation is the opposite of what he wants. So he's a bit like your uncle in that the victory is doing what you want, regardless of the consequences, even if it means losing money, because he has so damn much. Losing face is more of a risk to him than losing money. So the only way he can walk away, I mean, Tesla stock declining, none of that stuff is going to make him reverse his course in terms of being a complete utter dick on the internet. It's so much of who he is. And in fact, he was a rich kid who used his father's money and other resources to buy things. But, look what he invests in: rockets and cars and shutting down speech. So when you say other agenda, it's, part of it is he wants to yell at and crush liberals, but he also that he's one of these people who I perceive is getting a high and being his whole identity built on humiliating others. And you hear this about the way he was a boss. So
Mhm.
if you an employee, so he's not. If his investors say, Elon, this isn't doing well, you need to shut up, he's not going to.
Right. Yeah.
So
And
I don't know what his exit strategy is, other than having the place go bankrupt and selling it to. I don't think he even wants to let it. I think it's important that he burn the place to the ground. Honestly,
well, and
not
Danielle,
for me, but for him.
right. And Danielle, I think part of that is it's just the psychology of who these men are. You could, if you're an Elon Musk with that kind of money and an ability to buy Twitter, or if you're Donald and you wind up in the Oval Office, you could become a hero to tens of millions of people by doing good, right? But they're not interested because they don't want to be first of all, like who on the left do we um turn into cult leaders? Nobody. We don't
Nobody.
do that. And it's not about being lauded. It's not about being a hero. It's about being somebody around whom you have cultish followers, right? They want sycophants. They want people down on their knees worshiping them.
This is the thing that I tweeted yesterday. Um, and on the same lines, and I said, does anyone ever ask the Republican Party why they are so weak and hateful? Why the truth is such a hard pill to swallow and equity for all somehow takes away from them? It's funny how the media always wants to unpack their grief, but not their depravity. And the reality is that they are depraved human beings. Because
Yep.
when I sit around and I think exactly to your point, Mary, about having hundreds of billions of dollars, massive amount of money that you will never be able to spend, not in your lifetime, not in generations will you spend that amount of money. And Jen knows, because she does this work and this research, you don't amass that kind of money by doing good, right?
Nope.
You amass that kind of money off the backs of people who you are stealing and extracting wealth from. Right.
Mhm.
So that goes into our tax system and how we allow these ultra wealthy to even become ultra wealthy. Right.
Yep.
Because they don't
Yep.
pay their fair share. It's why Elon Musk left Canada to come to the United States, so that he would be able to create more of a tax shelter for himself because of
Mhm.
the kind of loopholes that we have. But
That's
I
right.
think that what's important here is that we never have conversations about depravity. We never look at the wholeness of this of this political party, of their ideology that is steeped in cruelty. The mainstream media continues to talk with these people and talk about bipartisanship as if they have an on par ideology. Their ideology is about how much and how hard they can oppress others, right? And Elon Musk and Donald Trump and these men, I mean, they are so stunted. They are so stunted emotionally, and they take out all of their lack of self-esteem, of self-worth on others, because that's how they feel strong. The basis of Magadam is steeped in white fragility, right? Because they believe that white people are so fucking weak that if you were met with a mirror and the truth, right, then oh my God, we can't, like Ron DeSantis said, we got to pass legislation to make sure that white people don't feel bad about themselves, because then what the fuck is going to happen, right? So it's like, I wish that we had those conversations instead of just talking about how these people are crazy, or
Mhm.
or how they are geniuses, that we would talk about the depravity,
Yep.
right? That is a part, that is the basis, that is the foundation, that is their value set, right? And how they are trying to impose that on everyone else and create this fear and loathing and miserable situation for so many, so that they can continue to feel grand, so that they can feed their egos.
Yeah, we absolutely need to keep hammering away at that. That is the conversation, and the fact that it is just never breached ever. It's quite something. I mean, we are living in a time when the case against billionaires is being made on a daily basis by billionaires. The fact also that Twitter at this point isn't being seen as a national security risk is all quite something. I mean, this is a dangerous situation where it almost makes me want to push the envelope and see what happens if I do something ill-advised on Twitter. But it requires united and coordinated action on our part. We just need to figure out what that is. So we're about ready to wrap up. Jen, any last words?
I was thinking about what you and Danielle were talking about, and thinking about depravity and thinking about the kind of hoarding behavior when you take so much more than you need. And it's almost like, if you were exceedingly wealthy and you were having a banquet just for the three of us, but we had enough food for 100 people, let's say, and steaming plates of food. And then we were nibbling at it, and there were really and people who were serving us were hungry, and people outside were hungry and cold, and we didn't share it. We didn't even give the leftovers to anybody. We just, dumped them, in a place that no one could have them. Now multiply that by hundreds of millions. And what he is doing, because he said, I could, with just an X number of $1 billion, cure hunger in America. I doubt that. But, that when you're hoarding, even if they don't want to pay taxes, they're not giving it to foundations that can solve these problems. He's doing something to destroy a platform. You have all this money. What is wrong with you that you wouldn't do something to help others have access to the American dream? People claim in the conservative side that they think it should be equality of access, not equality of outcomes, but they steal from people the ability to have access by not paying their fair share in taxes. Or if they think, if they say, well, we can do better in the private sector with charity, then fucking step up. That's not what these people, I think Elon Musk is doing more to destroy the good side of markets and capitalism than anyone could. It's that old expression that you've heard in labor union organizing, which is the best union organizer is a bad boss. I mean, he is an advertisement for, to say that markets fail. I mean, not that markets are I'm not someone to ever believe that markets are perfect, but I'm one of these sort of unbalanced. There's a role for markets, and my students often get annoyed with me because they think I'm a centrist apologist. And if they only knew how far to the left most people would consider me, but I don't give up on markets, and he's really pushing folks to wonder what the hell went on with this experiment here.
And also, let's be clear, people like him are depraved, not because problems they can solve exist and it just never occurs to them. It's because problems exist that they could help solve, and they know that they can help solve them. They just like the suffering. That's the depravity, guys. So that is it for today. This is our last show until the live show next Monday. January. When is it? I don't
It's
even know.
It's not January. It's December 19th.
It's sold out, so it doesn't.
And it's
really
gonna
matter.
be in Los Angeles, California, at the Dynasty type.
It's in LA.
It's in
telling
LA,
me.
Mary. So please make sure
Please
to get a
come, Mary.
ticket.
Please
I
go.
come.
I was
Please
going to
be
go
there.
to Anguilla, but
Watch-
okay.
Watch and I will be, waiting backstage until you tell us to come out. And if
You
don't
might
come
be there
out-
for a while if I
you're
go to
not
the
gonna-
wrong state.
Oh, Mary, we have a surprise guest. Am I allowed to say who it is?
No.
Oh, fuck. Okay, fine.
I don't know.
I'm so excited though.
Maybe our producer should weigh in on whether or not I should.
Hey, producer, should we say, nah, let's keep it a secret?
Yeah, we're gonna keep it a secret.
secret.
But it's up to me. Thank you for the guidance. It's very helpful. I'm too tired to make
Mary,
any
this
decisions.
is the Mary Trump show, not the producers.
I
Although
know, but
that was
I'm
a movie
tired.
that was good but did not hold up, actually, in certain ways.
I agree. Yeah. And neither did a funny thing happen on the way to the forum, but I still love that movie. Anyway, just because you reminded me of Zero Must Stop.
What?
All right, we're going off on tangents that nobody can follow, so we're going to end it there. Brian Karem, Danielle Moodie, Jen Taub, thank you all so much for being here, my nerds. I will see you. Actually, I'm not really sure what we're going to do next week because I think Jen and I are going to be on a plane.
Oh, okay.
So we'll
Yeah,
see. It'll
we'll
be
see.
fun. We'll figure it out.
Oh.
Ooh. Well, maybe we'll have it at a special time, but we'll keep you all
Okay.
posted. Anyway, thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to my nerds, Danielle, Jen, and Brian. Yeah, this is the last show until the live show next Monday at Dynasty Typewriter in Los Angeles. That's at 7:30. I hope to see some of you there. Anyway, you probably all can't go, but hopefully some of you will be there. And yeah, I'm definitely going to keep you posted about what's happening next Tuesday. We'll figure that out. And we will be having a show this Thursday, our regular interview show at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific at youtube.com/Politicon. And while you're there at Politicon's YouTube channel, subscribe to Politicon and like the episode, leave a comment if you'd like, click on that bell. That way you will be informed whenever new videos drop. And that's it for today. I'll keep you posted about next Tuesday, but I will see you Thursday night. And in the meantime, please stay safe and be kind.